armor for the saints, this the battle stance. If the cross ain't in it, then the point got missed. I'm a blood-bought soldier, can't water down this. Word over word. Truth over trend. Christ to the end. Truth over trend. Christ to the end.
Welcome to Truth Over Trend, the podcast where faith outweighs culture. I'm Michael, and today, before we get into the message, I want to do a quick recap about what Martika spoke about last week. So if you missed it, make sure you look down in the description and go back and watch the episode because it was so powerful. Martika talked about obedience feeling lonely. See, when you choose God over comfort and people, you won't always have company in that decision. Obedience can feel lonely. Romans 12:1 reminds us that obedience is a living sacrifice. It costs you something and you feel it. I don't care what anybody says. When God separates you from your norm, you feel it. Why? Because before elevation, there is always separation. God removes distractions, people, and patterns to prepare you for what's next. See, the key takeaway from last week's message is that what feels like isolation is actually preparation for what God is trying to do for you. Separation comes before elevation. Sometimes you have to recognize that that separation is only taking you to your next level. So you have to understand that even though it may feel uncomfortable, even though you may not like what God is doing, it's not about what you like, it's about what God's trying to take you to. So that message leads directly into today's message because many people misunderstand the breaking seasons. See, we think if something hurts, God must not be in it. We think that if a relationship shifts, if a door closes, or if people walk away, then something went wrong. But what if God was never trying to keep you comfortable? What if he was trying to make you fruitful? So he put you in discomfort to make you fruitful. So today we're talking about something a lot of people experience but rarely admit openly. What happens when God allows breaking in your life before blessing? Not punishment, not abandonment, but pruning, adjustment, transformation. Some of you are grieving relationships. Some of you are struggling because people walked away. Some of you are wrestling with the fact that certain doors closed, friendships changed, environment shifted, and life no longer feels balanced. But the kingdom often requires a cutting, things that cannot go where God is taking you. So today's message is called Take the Broken and Call It Blessed. Take the broken and call it blessed. Because sometimes God breaks your dependency to build your identity. I'm going to say that again. God breaks your dependency to build your identity. Sometimes God removes what you love because it competes with what he has called you to become. If it's competing with God's will for your life, he's going to remove it. So our scripture foundation is going to be found in Galatians 6:1, and it reads like this: Brethren, if any man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: God can bless you while you still feel broken. We think blessings mean everything is perfect. Mm-mm. We think blessings mean no pain, no loss, no discomfort. But biblically, blessings often comes with crushing. Oil comes from crushed olives. Wine comes from crushed grapes. Bread must be broken before it can feed others. And many times God has allowed the breaking season because sometimes inside of you has to die before purpose can fully live. Something inside of you has to go away so that what God has predestined you for can fill you all the way up. See, some people are asking God, why am I hurting? Why did this relationship end? Why did this season collapse? And heaven is responding because growth requires separation. Some relationships were never meant to carry you into your next season. Some environments were feeding your flesh while starving your spirit. Your spirit, man, was crying out, but your flesh had a strong demand and you weren't listening to your spirit. See, you cannot ask God for elevation while remaining attached to everything that keeps you stagnant. Brokenness is not always destruction. Sometimes brokenness is reconstruction. Mm. Sometimes God breaks you. He breaks your dependence on people so that you can learn to depend on Him. A lot of times we look at the people as our source, and God said, why are you sourcing people when I'm the source? You're praising the creation and not recognizing the creator, or praising the creator who gave the creation the ability to do what it does. You have to shift your focus from your norm and see the God in it. See, people cannot always be the reason that you fall. This is a dangerous place spiritually when people become the excuse for your disobedience. One of the things you hear a lot is people say, I stopped because of church hurt. I stopped praying because of church hurt. I stopped seeking God because people disappointed me. I compromised because everyone around me was doing it. They're saying it's okay to do this. But hear this carefully. People can influence you, but they cannot stand before God for you. They can influence you, but they cannot stand to God before God for you. At some point, maturity says, I cannot allow another person to become the reason I drift away from God. I can't let people be the separation that keeps me from the place that God has called me to be. That's why Galatians 6:1 matters. Paul says it. He says, if someone is overtaken in fault, spiritual people restore them with meekness. Notice the instruction: restore, not destroy, correct, not condemn. But also understand this: restoration only works when someone actually wants healing. It's a heart posture. You have to want to be changed from what you are. You cannot save people who are committed to dysfunction. You cannot carry people who refuse accountability. And you most definitely cannot drown trying to keep someone else afloat spiritually. You cannot bear the weight of another person's burden who's not trying to save themselves. Some of you are exhausted because you keep sacrificing your obedience to try to maintain relationships that God already exposed. There are people who only love the version of you that lack boundaries. The moment you grow spiritually, they call you different. And they're right. You are different. Growth changed you. Let me say it again. Growth changed you. I'm not who I used to be. See, next, relationship barriers and breaking things off for new growth. What does that look like? Sometimes barriers in your life it's not the devil. Sometimes it's attachment. A lot of times we like to blame things on the devil, but it's really our attachments, attached to toxic cycles, attached to old identities, attached to people who only validate your flesh, people who only like the outside of you, as long as it doesn't step outside of the boundaries of their comfort. We love preaching about open doors, but rarely preach about necessary closures. I'm going to say that again. We love speaking about open doors, but don't talk enough or speak enough about the necessary doors that need to be closed in our lives. There are things God will not grow because your environment keeps contaminating the seed. See, imagine planting something healthy into poison soil. No matter how good the seed is, the environment will eventually affect the outcome. See, that's why pruning matters. Jesus talked about branches. He talked about being cut so greater fruit could grow. Pruning is painful because it feels personal. God starts cutting conversations, habits, relationships, desires, and environments. Lord, why are you taking all these things away? And the flesh interprets pruning as loss, but the spirit recognizes it as preparation. It recognizes as I got to get rid of all these heavy weights so that my elevation can come, so that I can begin to grow and new fruit can come from me. All those dead places are being cut away from me because new life is growing on the inside of me, and there's new levels that I'm trying to elevate to. See, some people think that every broken relationship is spiritual warfare. But I'm here to tell you that no, it is not spiritual warfare. Sometimes it is spiritual rescue. Some separations are mercy. Lord, thank you for your mercy because not everybody assigned to them is every, how do I say it? Because not everybody assigned themselves to your life was assigned by God. Everybody who says, I'm your best friend, everybody who says, I'm here to help you grow, is not an assignment from God. Breaking things off does not always mean hatred. Sometimes it means stewardship over your soul. You cannot become who God called you to be while staying loyal to everything that opposes your transformation. Let me say that again. You cannot become who God called you to be while staying loyal to everything that opposes your transformation. You can't be loyal to those people, places, and things, situations, environments that are opposed to your transformation. That's why pruning has to take place. You have to be pruned for perfection. Perfection in the kingdom is not flawlessness, it is maturity, wholeness, and alignment. That's why Psalms 119 and 80 says, let my heart be sound in thy statutes. David is saying, Lord, make my heart stable in you, not emotional one day and compromised in the next, not holy publicly and rebellious privately. A sound heart is a surrendered heart. That means a surrendered lifestyle because whatever's inside of you is going to come out. Many people want God to change their circumstance while refusing to let him change their character. See, but the pruning reveals what still controls you. I'll say that again. The pruning reveal what still controls you. God will expose pride. He will expose your insecurities. He will expose idolatry. He will expose your emotional dependencies, not to shame you, but to heal you. Sometimes exposure is only to heal you, but we run from healing because we're afraid of being exposed. But who else can you be transparent to but God? God is committed more. How do I say? He is more committed to your transformation than you are to your temporary comfort. You want temporary comfort rather than transformation. Why would you want to stay the same when God is causing you to elevate? I don't want to go back to what I used to be. I don't want to go back to Egypt. I want to make it to the promise. Why are you so stuck in Egypt and bondage just because you're thirsty? A moment of discomfort does not mean return to the place of bondage just for a taste. Go to the place of abundance where there's no demand, where there's no need, where there's no want. It's recognizing where you are. Stop looking for balance when life requires adjustment. This generation loves the word balance. But sometimes balance is impossible because God is calling for adjustment in priorities, adjustment in relationships, adjustment in habits, adjustment in your mindsets. You have to do an adjustment. See, when a plane changes direction, it adjusts course. When a surgeon saves a life, adjustments are made. When an athlete trains for greatness, adjustments happen. So, why do we think spiritual growth requires no inconvenience? I don't want to have to do things that don't make me feel good. See, some of you are frustrated because your old life and new calling cannot coexist peacefully. You cannot club and say, I'm a follower of Christ. They don't coexist. The habitats don't come together. There's no unity in Satan and sanctification. There is no unity. You're trying to balance flesh and spirit, balance compromise and conviction, balance comfort and calling. And God is saying, choose transformation. That's why Lamentations 3:22 through 23 is powerful. Every morning, God gives new mercy, not so we can remain stagnant, but so we can continue growing. Hallelujah. I don't want to stay here. I want to continue to grow. I want to be who God has called me to be. See, if you feel broken right now, hear this clearly. Broken does not mean abandoned. God can take broken seasons and produce blessed outcomes. He can prune you without destroying you. He can separate you without forsaking you. He can correct you while still loving you. And maybe this season is not about balance. Maybe it's about surrender. It's about adjustment. It's about becoming. Why? Because some things must break for new growth to emerge. Some relationships must end for identity to be restored. Some attachments must die for purpose to live. You have to cut some things in order for you to live. So stop grieving every closed door as if God failed you. God said he'll never leave you, he'll never forsake you. Some doors close because your future could not fit through them. I'm going to say that again. Some doors close because your future could not fit through them. So, like we do every week, I want to leave you with 3 questions, and I want you to take the time to do a real evaluation of them. The first one is, what relationships or attachments are affecting your spiritual growth right now? What's affecting your spiritual growth? Number 2, are you asking God for comfort when he is actually calling for adjustment? And number 3, what area of your life is God pruning so greater fruit can grow? And as always, this is Truth Over Trend. I'm Michael, and take the time to let this message sink in. Journal those questions. And remember, be blessed. We'll see you next week.
Truth over trend. Christ to the end. Truth over trend. Christ to the end.